It is Topic Tuesday, and my name is Jorie Houlihan. I'm your guide for the dopamine deprived. I come on here live every Tuesday at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time to talk about something ADHD related for a few minutes. And today we are talking about the ADHD urge to burn it all down. Yeah. So have you ever had that sudden urge to just scrap everything, right? Like delete the calendar, quit the job, toss out the planner, just start over from zero. So if you have that, my friends, is the urge to burn it all down. So it's not because you're dramatic or unreliable. It's just that it's your brain's way of saying, I'm overwhelmed, I'm bored, I'm stuck, or all of the above, and I just need some relief. And so today we're going to unpack why all of that is happening and some things that you might be able to do to, you know, to make a choice other than torching everything. Okay. So, why do we do this? The urge happens in part because of all or nothing thinking. All or nothing thinking is very, very sneaky. It just shows up when you're least expecting it. So, our brain tends to sometimes live in extremes, right? It's either this is amazing or this is useless. And sometimes it will go from one to the other like that. Overwhelm will also, that's a big culprit. Over we have a low tolerance for frustration, and so that is what causes us to get overwhelmed easily. And when we have too many demands that pile up, the brain just is trying to find a way out. Um, then of course there is the dopamine drop, right? So all of a sudden it went from, novel and fun, whether it's, a project, your job, a relationship, goes from novel and fun to, not. And when the novelty wears off, the brain will interpret that boredom as this doesn't work anymore. And very rarely is that actually the case. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's not. But that is how the brain interprets it. Boredom for people with ADHD. I think I just read this somewhere. It's literally painful for us to be bored. So that explains a few things. All right. Why else? Oh, just the emotional intensity, right? A small frustration can just explode into this whole thing is broken, right? Think about how many times you've created a system and you had one day where maybe you were just having an off day where your system didn't work very well. And you're like, see, the whole thing's broken. And you just throw the whole thing out when it might have just been a bad day, or maybe just a small component of it needs to be tweaked. But we have a tendency to throw the whole thing out. So what does that look like for a lot of you? It can be deleting apps, planners, calendars impulsively. It can look like quitting jobs, projects, hobbies suddenly, tossing out systems that were working just fine last week, right? It can be throwing out relationships that were working just fine last week. And just sort of declaring, I'm starting over. I'm just starting afresh. Is that a word? Anew, starting fresh, whatever. You know what I'm saying? But then you end up regretting it later. So the cycle just leaves us frustrated, and then usually in a lot of cases feeling ashamed or just just overwhelmed again, because now you're starting from scratch again. So what might be a little more helpful? Okay. So, but I know this is hard to do when we have ADHD, but you really want to find a way to pause first. Okay. Pausing is a skill that we really have to practice, because a lot of us, even if you are diagnosed with the inattentive presentation, most of y'all still have some impulsive stuff going on. You just didn't have enough during your assessment to have yourself diagnosed as the combined presentation. Give yourself 24 hours, right? Say, wait a minute. Okay, this is what I always do. I always throw out this whole system. Let me wait 24 hours. Let me see how I feel. Because if you're still feeling this way tomorrow, then you might want to, then maybe it's a valid thing. But if it's something that's in the moment, right? You want to have that 24 hours so that you can kind of revisit it And again, if it's a system, for example, so you can say, okay, well, actually, this is sort of my next point, which is to like find the real pain point. It's probably not the entire system that doesn't work. And I am speaking from experience on this one. I cannot tell you how many times I have, quote unquote, started over. It is very often not everything that's broken. It is one little cog in your system that needs to be tweaked or thrown out. It is rarely the entire thing. And so ask yourself questions, right? Maybe your system's too rigid, right? This is where another place where that all or nothing thinking comes in because we're like, I'm going to do this every single day. And that doesn't work for us. We're not built that way, right? It's too rigid, or maybe it's too boring. Maybe you need to gamify something in it, or maybe it's too complicated. We really our brains work much better when we streamline things, and yet we are so talented in making things way more complicated than they need to be. And it's because our brain is just moving so fast. And what if we had this? What if we do this? And then it's too complicated. Right? Think about a to-do list that you have where you've even broken it down and you just have like so many steps, right? I'm a big fan of breaking down tasks into smaller components, but there does hit a point where there's too many and that's what gets you overwhelmed, right? So then you're like, forget, I'm not doing any of it. So just ask yourself questions. This is again where that lens of curiosity comes in, right? Don't judge yourself. Don't be like, oh, see, I can't do this. I messed this up or whatever you're saying to yourself. Just be like, okay, something isn't feeling right. What's going on? Because you're not failing. It's just that there's something in the system that has either you have changed, and sometimes it's for the better. Maybe you're getting better at what you do, or maybe your systems are improving. So maybe you don't need that cog that needs to be thrown out anymore. See what I'm saying? Like, give yourself some credit. Um, Add the novelty without resetting the entire thing. So, like I said, like gamifying things, that oh, I gotta tell you, the gamifying thing can be so helpful. It can be sorry, my nose is really itchy. It can be so helpful, right? And it's little it can be also just little novelty things like getting a new pen, right? I can't tell you how many times I've done that. Oh, this pen is just gonna change everything. A new notebook is gonna change everything, and it's not going to change everything, and I know that now, but sometimes I just need the novelty to keep the ball rolling. So I hope that makes sense. Sometimes too, you can just change up like where you're doing the work. Maybe you just need a change of scenery. Maybe like I work from home, right? So maybe, one day instead of always working in my office, I'll go work out at the kitchen table, or maybe I'll do it outside for a while if it's nice out or whatever. We just need to change it up a little bit every once in a while because when we get bored, that's where things tend to go south. And you also want to plan for some flexibility. So you want to have a little wiggle room with your planning and with your system because your system isn't going to be perfect. There is no such thing as perfection. There just isn't. And that was one of the hardest things for me to come to accept. And I still kind of struggle with it, if I'm being honest. But somebody today told me, oh, Rana, I interviewed her for the new podcast and she was just told about this acronym and it is, how did she say it? Gebo? It stands for good enough, move on. I love that. I can't tell you how much I love that. Right? So that is for perfectionism, which is technically a different topic, but you can see where it comes into play when we have systems. It didn't work perfectly, therefore the entire thing doesn't work. That is the burning it all down aspect of perfectionism that we are trying to avoid. So, as long as the system is getting you mostly what you need, right? It's always a good time. I mean, I shouldn't say it's always a good time. If it's not feeling right, it's okay to look at the system and say, okay, what might we need to tweak in here? Again, that lens of curiosity. Again, it doesn't mean you have failed. It just means it just isn't quite working the way it is. But you also want to give yourself that 24 hours because it might have just been you had a bad day, right? Or technology was having a fluke day or whatever it is. It's just, you want to like have some flexibility to be like, okay, you know, it's working good enough. We can take a look and see if there's something we can tweak, but you know what? It's still working pretty well. It's just not as perfect as I had expected it to be, but that's okay. Okay. So I want you to be aware that the urge to burn it all down is really common in ADHD, like, really common, and it doesn't mean that you're not reliable or flaky or dramatic or any of that kind of stuff. It just is it's again, it's just a signal from the brain saying, "I am I need some relief, I need some novelty, I need, some flexibility, I just need something different." And so that's what we talked about. We talked about maybe changing where you're working, or maybe getting a new pen and notebook, or just something to make it more novel, or gamifying things so that it's just a little more fun to do. And, and again, you don't wanna start from scratch, because that in and of itself is overwhelming. Just start asking yourself questions from that lens of curiosity. "I'm feeling resistance to this. What's going on?" Right? And take a look at your system and say, "Okay, this was working really well until this point. Oh, this is the point. You know what? This is what we can tweak." Because it turns out you don't need to scrap the whole system. You just need to tweak that one part. The other thing I will say is sometimes that urge to burn it all down gives us dopamine, because even though we're not really being dramatic, it feels dramatic, and that can give us dopamine too. So you got to be careful of that. That urge for the dopamine, again, it's sort of like the all or nothing thinking. It shows up in weird places. It shows up in very weird places, and this is one of them. All right, so I want you to think about, what is the last system or tool that you burned down, and what is one tweak you can make this week instead of burning it down in a system that maybe is, causing you to think about it. Okay. So that is it for this topic Tuesday. If I'm trying to think of if there's anything else I want to add. I don't think there is. So the urge to burn it down, it's very common. You're not alone. But instead of starting from scratch and all that stuff and giving yourself more work than you need to, give yourself the 24 hours and then just play around with it, tweak it. Use that curiosity, because we're very curious and we're very creative. Okay? So, and as usual, as I will always say, you're not broken. You've just been working with the wrong owner's manual. So this is one way that you can try to rewrite that manual for yourself. All right. So the podcast, I'm currently doing some interviews for that. You guys it's going to be so exciting. I'm really excited about it. That launches October 14th. And if you have any topics that you want me to cover on Topic Tuesday in particular, definitely put those in the comments so that I can try to work those into one of my Topic Tuesdays. All righty. So until next Tuesday, stay curious, and I will see you then.